Hello and welcome to El Hangeo. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I've known for a number of years since I was in college and who has been a constant member of our Hispanic, Latinx, Afro-Latino community here in Massachusetts. And I am so excited for you to hear our conversation today with José Massó.
Bessie, thank you so much. It's my honor and pleasure to be with you on your show, and congratulations on making this happen.
Thank you. I have known you since I was 18 or 19 years old, when I was a freshman or sophomore at Northeastern. That's when I first met you.
So that would have been, what year would that have been? 2000 something?
2003 or 4.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
About
That's
18 years.
Wild.
Wow.
Wild.
Half of your life. I've known you half of your life. I was going to say, I'm honored that I've known you that long. Thank you.
Oh, please, no, likewise. And you know, just like me, what I was going to say, just like me, there's so many people like me that have known you either their entire lives or the majority of their lives, and also because of the show.
I turned 46 years on the radio this past June 22nd. So it's been a blessing, Bessie.
That's amazing.
You know, 46 years of being on the air. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
When I first started, I was just thinking it'd be a couple of years, and then the couple of years have grown to be what it is now. So
I wish I could go into all of the details of how you got here and all the jobs you've had and how you've changed. You know, I myself, I'm in a moment of like reinvention. It's just like, okay, here we go again. But you know, I feel like you have also gone through that multiple times, and you have faced it with the energy of success, right? That this is a challenge, but we're going to make it work. Or this is an opportunity and we're going to make it work, you know, or this is a new position and we're going to make it work. And obviously with the show being your constant. So while we can go into all of the details of your life here, I would like to touch upon like this wave of life, right, that you have been able to surf through, and how someone like me or someone younger than me can continue to reinvent themselves and know that it'll be okay, and know that, you know, after the end of the new opportunity, the new challenge, the new whatever, life is gonna succeed.
You know, my journey from Puerto Rico to the United States starts when I transferred from University of Puerto Rico to a small school in Ohio, Antioch College, in September of 1970. I was 20 years old. I had already done my first 2 years of university at the University of Puerto Rico, my homeland where I was born and raised. And I actually wanted to pursue journalism, Bessie. I wanted to be a journalist because I love to write. But they didn't have a journalism school at the University of Puerto Rico, and I applied to Syracuse University. And I also thought about going to BU because both Syracuse and BU had some good schools. But as you can imagine, being from Puerto Rico, when I came up to visit the schools at the age of 18, I came in April and I found snow in the ground. And that was not to my liking, thinking that I'd be studying someplace where spring would be full of snow, a foot tall, you know, foot high. So I returned to Puerto Rico thinking I would continue my education in Puerto Rico. But what Antioch offered, Bessie, and I think this is going to tie into the larger conversation that you and I are having about reinventing yourself. What Antioch offered me was something that I had experienced throughout my youth from 7th grade to 12th grade, which was basically experiential learning. I learned more out of the classroom when I was in high school because I worked summer jobs. And the summer jobs allow me to try different things that I was interested in, that I was not interested in, but it allowed me to have that experience. And I would take that experience back to the classroom, having learned over the summer a number of things that you would never be able to learn into the classroom because they were real life experiences working with other people. In many of the cases, I was the youngest person in the work field where I was doing construction or whatever it was that I was doing. And all these elements made it so that having those different experiences from the time I was in 7th grade all the way to my senior year in high school meant that I was looking forward to a life where I could experience a number of different passions, if you will, that I've had. Music has always been my passion since I was a little kid. And I played music, and as you can see, I'm in my studio here in my home. Music has been part of my life since I've been, I don't know, 6 years old. And so therefore music was always going to be part of me. Coming to the United States, what I found was that as much as I knew about the United States knew very little about me. Even though I'm a US citizen at birth, as a Puerto Rican, the majority of people in the United States couldn't differentiate between you and I as to where we come from, what our history is, our culture, anything about us, because they look at everything from the prism, if you will, of a Eurocentric view. And so therefore, when they think about us, they think about us as other, or they don't know particularly the specifics about Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, Haitians, Mexicans, Colombians, Salvadorians, Panamanians, you can go through the whole continent. And I found that to be shocking. So I went through some culture shock during my first year, and I wanted to return home, Bessie. That was the one time that, if you look at my lifetime, where where my knees sort of like buckled, it was during my first year of college. Most of it was because I was in a place that I thought I knew, but they knew very little of me, and I felt out of place. And my parents were the ones that continued to push me to stay. My father, very smart, sent me about 300 of the albums I've got back here to ground me. And he said, be expecting a big, large package. And it was a number of boxes. When I went to the post office, the guy says, is that you? And I said, yes. He said, you got a lot of boxes to carry back. And there were boxes full of my albums. And the reason he sent it to me was he wanted for me to have something that I could relate to, that grounded me as to who I am, my identity, my culture, my being. And that was a turning point for me. That helped me sort of like say, okay, I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I know what my purpose is. So let me go forth. And I owe that to my dad, knowing very well the connection that music and culture had for me. And so therefore, when I finished my education at Antioch, I was thinking I'd be going back to Puerto Rico to be a teacher, because I thought that teaching would be my way of connecting that divide that exists between people not knowing each other, not knowing history, not knowing culture. And I wanted to use the educational forum of a classroom to be able to do so. But I came to Boston to do student teaching as part of my curriculum at Antioch. And the headmaster there asked me after I finished what I planned to do. And I told her I'd go back to Puerto Rico. And she said, if I offered you a job, would you consider coming here after you graduate? And I said, of course. And she did offer me a job. And I came in 1973 and taught in the bilingual public school system, bilingual education in the Boston public school system at a place called Copley Square High School, which is now the Snowden on the corner of Newberry and Dartmouth Street. And so that was sort of like my transition from Puerto Rico to the United States at the age of 20 to 23. Now, mind you, I lived in Japan when I was a child because my father, like many of his contemporaries in Puerto Rico, I joined the army to serve in the army during the Second World War. And he ascended from a private all the way to an officer. When he retired, he was a major. But when he was a captain, he got transferred to Japan. So my first travel out of Puerto Rico was to Japan, of all places. I learned English in the classroom and Spanish at home and Japanese in the streets. When I returned to Puerto Rico, no one spoke Japanese, nor did they have that in the school system. So that's all I left my persona. But I continued English, of course, and being bilingual and bicultural. So that experience of being in Japan, that adjustment of being in a different place, I did it at a very young age. So I didn't go through the things that I went through when I was 20, because I didn't have that consciousness, if you will, of understanding where I was and what was happening. I was just like on another place with my parents, going through a different experience. Yeah. And it was a novel experience, but one I enjoyed. So chapter 1 of my life was Japan, Puerto Rico, Japan, Puerto Rico, and then United States as a college student.
I think one of the most important lessons in that, and that when we met you, and I say we because it's me and a number of my friends that we met you through Northeastern University, because at the time you were working and also mentoring college students, which I believe is something that you've always done and something that, a lot of us appreciate because you mentored us. And I think that the biggest lesson in what you just spoke about is knowing who you are, knowing your roots. So, now we live in an age that everything is so fast and so liquid. We can get everything through social media. We can create a new personality. as I was sharing with you, I'm going through a moment of reinvention because I'm changing my careers or rediscovering my passions and giving that a chance in my life, right? COVID showed us that anything can change at any minute. But can you go a little more into that core of just changing for the sake of changing and appearing to be someone new and actually knowing your roots? What your dad did for you through music brought you back to your roots. And what is the importance? Because regardless of where you go, whether it's a school or a job, or you leave the state or you leave your country, we have so many young adults coming to the US in search of a new good life, right? And how can they stay true to those roots, the actual essence of your history, of your background?
I think that all of us, in particular those of us who come from outside the United States, are constantly reinventing ourselves, constantly. And we've been doing that, knowingly or not, since we were children. We reinvent ourselves in every single particular space that we occupy. And in the case of you and others who have migrated or immigrated to the United States, that reinvention occurs, like I said, depending on space and time. When it is that you come to a certain place and what space are you occupying at that certain moment in time. So I'll give you an example using me as a model. When I came to the United States, as I mentioned before, I knew I was Puerto Rican. I knew my ethnicity was Afro-Boricua. I knew my race was Black. I knew that my nationality was Puerto Rican. I knew that my citizenship was that of the United States. So I already had that fundamentally cemented in who this person is. What occurred come the United States was that the other side of the United States, the majority, if you will, at that time, challenged all of those thoughts as to who we are, because they have us in a box of who they want us to be. And so therefore, they constantly try to make it in such that who we are, our identity, and what our purpose is in life is always questioned, because as a dominant figure in society, in whatever level, be it politics or in the private sector or in the cultural sector or in the social sector, they want to basically put us in a category that they can then be the dominant. And we have to constantly be challenging them there. And so that's what I was going through. When I said I was going through culture shock, it was a culture of where I was coming from, being a majority of Puerto Rico, and now being seen as a minority where I never been a minority, number one. And two, looking around and understanding that outside of the continent of, of the United States, when you go south and you go east to Africa and you go all these other places, we're people of color. And so the minority is not us when you really look at the global view of who we are. And I had come from Japan, where I also knew that, that there are other people that don't look Eurocentric. And so therefore, identity for me was a very important element, because that gave me the strength to say, okay, I know who I am. And therefore now I know, no matter what, this is what I bring to the table as a person. The other element that has to do with purpose is very important in how we do this shifting, if you will, because in my mind, my purpose in life has been, first and foremost, to leave this world a better place than what it is, where it was 71 years ago when I was born. That's why I was brought to Earth. The one thing that's driven me, Bessie, is my passion. And so my passion has always been around music. So the constant has been my radio show for 46 years, because music is my passion. But I have passion for other things. And within that other passion that I have is I want to best be part of how I help another person really find all the potential that they have to do whatever they want to do, regardless, whatever field it is, and not think that their life is one lane. When I look at you, Bessie, I never think about you as you're a one-lane driver. Bessie is going to drive on the fast lane and you're going to drive this type of car. No, Bessie, I look at you as someone driving a highway in which there are multiple lanes, and you shift from lane to lane depending on where you are, at what time you are, and what place you are, and what speed you're going. So sometimes you're going faster, sometimes you're going slower. Sometimes you deviate from one lane to the other, and sometimes you get off that lane to stop someplace and do something. But that multiple lane highway that we all are able to drive is what makes it so that we can, quote unquote, reinvent ourselves, because every lane is a different experience. Slow, medium, fast, faster, whatever you want to use as a metaphor for the lanes, those are different experiences. So I've always looked at my life as different lanes. And in those lanes, I've seen myself as an educator. I've seen myself as a promoter. I've seen myself as a social activist and a political activist. I've seen myself as a communicator. I've seen myself as someone who is very much engaged in what could be the best way of our community being truly liberated, in ways that we aspire, that makes it so that all of us, regardless of where we come from, have the equity that's necessary for us to be able to be successful in what we do. And I also look at my life as being one where I want to be a change agent, right? I went to a school, Antioch College, where the motto was, be ashamed to die until you have achieved the victory for humanity. So I wake up every morning thinking, today I have to work on something that's going to achieve a victory for all of us. And I'm engaged in that type of thinking, that whatever the status quo is, it could always be better. And I always want to go from good to great. And I always want to think about our lives in ways in which all of us are part of an ecosystem. So the reinventing for me is when I have opportunities to play a role in whatever institution it might be it sports, be it media, be it academia, be it higher ed, be it secondary education, be it philanthropy, be it in the private sector, be it in the public sector, I will take that opportunity as one where I can at least serve as a change agent, serve as a model, and serve as someone who could then use whatever agency I have in those titles to push and lift others so then they can follow and occupy the spaces that I've occupied in the past. And part of the thinking I've always had is that I'm comfortable doing that change of lanes, because for me, I don't see myself, and I don't allow others to put me into one lane. And so therefore, that's why I've been able to do that shifting of lanes, because I've from a very early age, I've understood you can change lanes. Don't let other people, put you in one lane. You have to be the person to say, no, I'm on a highway of life, and this is the way I'm going to live my life. So I'm going to go from being whatever I am to whatever I want to be. You will always find that you have the ability to move from lane to lane, always knowing if you have a purpose. You know your identity. So what's your purpose? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? What is the ultimate goal of what you're trying to do? And if you see yourself, Bessie, and I hope you do, as part of an ecosystem, that means that you're not alone. And I've never seen myself as being alone. That's another thing that I learned when I was going through culture shock, and my parents brought me back down to earth. They told me, you're not alone, son. You're not, this battle that you're going through, this challenge that you're going through, there are other people supporting you, and there are other people with you along this battle. And so don't take it on like you're the only person going through this. And I found that I had a lot of kindred spirits who, like me, were going through the same thing, and we bonded. And therefore, through our identity, through our purpose, through our culture, we were able to then be stronger. And by being stronger, we were able to succeed.
Through all of these reinventions in that highway, I feel like you continued playing salsa on the radio. How did the radio show start? And what was the purpose, right?
My students were the ones, after my second year, I taught for 3 years, they said, we love you as a teacher. You're the best teacher we've ever had, but you're in the wrong field. You need to be in media. You need to be doing radio. You need to be doing television. But I said, why do you think I should be doing that? And they said, well, A, because you speak English and Spanish and you should be a bridge between cultures. B, because you know all this music and that's the music that we love. And C is because people need to hear a voice like yours and see a face like yours, because we don't see faces like yours, nor do we hear voices like yours on the radio or on television. Whatever voices you heard were Euro-American, whatever faces you saw were Euro-American. And there's an African proverb that says, until the lion tell the story of the hunt, the hunter will always be glorified. And so by that, what they're saying is that we, you and I, and the platform that you're using, we need to be telling our story. Because if we don't tell our story, they will put us in a certain category and they'll glorify themselves at our expense. And again, it goes back to identity, because what I try to reinforce is, I want people to feel proud about their identity. I want particular Afro-Latinos to feel proud of their Afro-Latin ethnicity and their Blackness. I want them to feel a sense of unity, and that there's strength in unity, and that they have the ability as Latinos to make change happen if we're united. And so the purpose behind the show has always been not just to entertain, but to educate, inform, and to mobilize, and to, again, bring a sense of pride of being Afro-Latino, bring a sense of pride and knowledge of our history and culture, bring a sense of unity, because you realize that this music brings a number of different elements from different places and different people making this music happen, and bring a sense of strength, collective strength, if together we do it. That's why you hear me say every hour, Latino, defiende lo tuyo con orgullo. Todos unidos entre amigos, uno para todos y todos para uno. I say that because that is basically the way we have to think about ourselves.
The most important constant that we can talk about in your highways when you started sharing your ride. Can you go a little bit into that? Because when you're talking about yourself, right? I'm not married. I've never had kids. There have been moments in my life where the idea has petrified me, because you can be confident in the decisions that you want to take for yourself, right? Like, you're driving along that highway. It's like, yeah, I can go wherever. I can take whatever decision, I can take whatever risk. But when you're starting to share your journey with someone, it's difficult to make a marriage last, and especially with all these changes in society that you have seen together, right? Yeah. From your experience with your wife, raising a family, going through good and bad together, the one explanation or advice to making a relationship work, to driving in that highway together?
I don't know if I have one explanation. I think the relationship that I have with Divina is one that is constantly evolving. It's never the same. So who we were 46 years ago into who we are today, the constant with Divina is that I found in her someone who allowed me to be me, number one. She accepted me as me. But at the same time she accepted me as me, she clearly stated right from the beginning that I had to know who she is and what she brings to the table as a person. I first met her because I had injured my knee playing basketball after Antioch College at a basketball court in O'Day Park in the South End. And I didn't have any insurance between Antioch and my job at Copley Square High School. So I was uninsured. And I needed to find a way of getting care. And so friends of mine, Kenny Wilson, may he rest in peace, suggested I go see this woman at the health clinic by the name of Divina. She's from Puerto Rico. She's going to take care of you. Don't worry about pain. Everything will be okay. So I went there May of 1973 and had all the care. When I was leaving, Bessie, Divina asked me how I was going to pay. And I was shocked because I said, wait a minute, I thought it was for free. She said, no, you have to pay. I said, but I thought you were going to take care of me. She said, we did take care of you. We saw you the whole night. I said, oh my God, are you from Puerto Rico? She said, yes. Don't you? And she's, anyway, at the end of the day, I wound up paying. And the next day, Kenny, was euphoric. Oh, wow, is she beautiful? Is she great? Don't you like her? And I said, no, I don't want to hear her name ever mentioned again. And it turned out, later when we started getting to know each other, that she told me, listen, when you came to Boston, a number of you young men, Puerto Ricans who had just graduated from college, you came in with this, tsunami of presence and everybody was impressed. And no one was acknowledging what we had accomplished all that time before you got here. And so what she wanted me to understand was that while I was doing all these great things, she had been doing great things as well. And I needed to pay attention to what she had done and others like her who were living here would basically open the door for us to be able to come and settle here as well. It wasn't like when we got here, everything started. It had started way back when she got here at the age of 4 and 5 years old. And so that moment for her was sort of like my moment of understanding that she was sort of like quietly pulling me and saying, hold on, don't go too fast, because before you got here, we were here and we did all these great things. And thanks to us, you are able to do all these great things. And I commend you for all the great things you're doing, but don't slight us. And then second, it gave me a different sense of who she was as a person. And I started finding out more about her. And I was so impressed. I was like, wow, this is somebody I really need to know. Little did I know I'd fall in love with her, but I did. And then as I get older, Bessie, and I've shared this and you've heard me say this, you know, I'm no spring chicken. I'm 71. I realize every morning when I wake up that, you know, I've got more yesterdays than tomorrows, more past and future. And so therefore, I think in part, the fact that I embrace life wholeheartedly, and Divina does as well, helps that relationship be strong, you know, because we're passionate about life. And I'll admit, I'm passionately in love with life. And I think part of my being passionately in love with life is because I'm passionately in love with Divina. And so those two things occur hand in hand, right? There's so many people, unfortunately, that have come on earth that don't see their purpose in life, right? They think their purpose in life is, I'm going to work, I'm going to make money, I'm going to buy, I'm going to purchase, I'm going to do this, and that's all I do. But they don't live life. They don't understand that part of being alive is to live life. You don't work, you know, you don't live to work, you work so that you can live. And in living life, it means that you have to take a moment, every single moment, to really embrace what that life is that's being given to you. And even when we're not as successful as we aspire to be in whatever that might be is, we'll take that lesson and pocket it, put it here and say, okay, what I learned from there, I'm going to make sure I use for the next one. Not to do this or to do this, that's going to help me in my, you know, that lane that I'm driving. Because remember, in the lane that you drive, you're going to get flat tires. You're going to run out of gas. You're going to need an oil change. You're going to need to change the vehicle after a number of years. You're going to need to get it inspected. All those things that happen in real life with an automobile that you drive happens in your life every single stage of the way. And so you've got to be cognizant of that as you go through this journey of multiple lanes that is your life.
Well, Jose, thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening and inspirational and energetic conversation, because, you know, I think for those of you that don't know you in person, they could get a taste of your essence and realize how lucky we have been to have you and to know you as well. And they can also tune in and listen to your show from anywhere in the world, which is wonderful now, like you said, thanks to technology.
God is very special in how she has been able to bring certain people into each other's lives. And I've never questioned her when she places people in front of me. I sort of like walk away and say, God, I don't know what your plan was, but thank you for including me in it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.